With Sasha Banks advertised for a WWE event and more, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. With him confirming reports that Claudio Castagnoli was supposed to win the ROH World title in November, Chris Jericho said on his podcast, "The cool thing was the idea originally was to do me and Claudio at Full Gear. One other idea was to do me and Bryan Danielson at Full Gear for the Ring of Honor title, and then Tony Khan had the idea of a three-way Bryan versus Claudio versus Jericho. We still weren't quite feeling it, and then Tony, once again, he really is a smart guy. He won the Booker of the Year for a reason. He came up with the idea of putting Sammy Guevara in there and making it a four-way. Now we have to figure out how that works storyline wise, and we got it." On his Grilling JR podcast, Jim Ross touched on the reason for the late Chyna's release from WWE, saying she wanted $1 million guarantee because she felt like she was worth more being a female, being more unique than Stone Cold, some of the other guys. There was only a handful of guys making $1 million per year. I said, "Vince, if I can't get a decent number, we may have to pass on it." He said, "Well, that's your call." I couldn't give her $1 million a year. Could she have earned over $1 million per year? She probably did a couple of times, if I remember correctly, but that guarantee was just too big. When it comes to a clause preventing talent in WWE from being cut by the company, Sean Ross Sapp reported that, "We've learned plenty about the contract negotiation process of WWE deals during what seems to be a new era, but we've gained some clarity in regards to internal feelings about how some were negotiated just before that. We reported last year that no-cut clauses have not been a part of any of the negotiations. In addition, Fightful had learned that Vince McMahon specifically was not in favor of adding a no-cut clause, but that others in the front office were. We've learned that many in the front office of WWE have heard that WWE President and Chief Revenue Officer Nick Khan has sounded open to the idea. Ultimately, Vince McMahon had the final say and was vehemently against the idea of a no-cut clause. It didn't cost WWE any big potential free agents, but there were some that had inquired about it. One person chalked it up to Vince McMahon being stuck in his ways and said that it really put in perspective how many talent that had been released said Vince McMahon liked me, but when he ultimately had the say so over who was cut. Most talent that we've spoken to have very positive things to say about Nick Khan and his method of management, specifically thinking outside of the box as compared to WWE traditions. Since Vince McMahon's exit, there have not been mass main roster WWE releases, although there have been NXT and NXT UK cuts. Recalling his torn bicep in WWE, Erick Rowan revealed that he only got 1 day off WWE TV. "All the times I got injured and you saw me off TV was because I was having surgeries. Every time I was off TV for a period of time, it was because I was having a surgery. You never saw cameras around me. No, I was by myself at the hospitals, getting the surgery, flying back home, miserable, and doing the rehab every day, sometimes twice a day. Nobody ever talks about it. I remember when the Bludgeon Brothers, we had one at SummerSlam. I tore my bicep. They gave me 1 day off so I could hopefully deal with the pain. And then we did a SmackDown versus The New Day where we used ladders and all sorts of stuff. In the meantime, I don't have a right bicep that's attached to my arm, but I've never made a story out of it." On the Johnny Dare Morning Show, Baron Corbin mentioned the changes under the Triple H regime in WWE, saying, "The show has gotten new energy, new life, and for me being on Monday nights, I'm still adjusting and being on the new schedule, getting into the roster and digging into who we can work with and who we want to beat up and who has the most punchable face besides me. It's fun, it's nice, we're not rushing anything. That's one thing I love about Triple H. He's a firm believer in it's a marathon, not a race. He likes to slow play things and he doesn't just waste people. If you don't have something that is a big time play or move on television, he's like, then you don't need to be out there because it's not good to just be out there. You want to have a purpose every time you go on television. It's still a lot of things for me to get used to where he's like, hey, stay at home with your family this weekend. Enjoy the weekend. He's a guy that really wants his talent and the families to be happy. Vince McMahon is the same as well, but his mentality is go, go, go. That's how he is. He's incredible. He works out at 3 a.m. He's a machine and expects everyone else around him to be a machine. Everybody in WWE is capable of that, but it is nice to step back. I just took a cruise and was on a boat for 7 days. According to the US Sun, WWE is interested in having heavyweight boxing champion Tyson Fury appear for WrestleMania, but immigration seems to be an issue. Tyson is well loved at the WWE, and him popping up in any match in a run to WrestleMania would generate huge headlines and fan interest. However, his immigration status is proving tricky to deal with. Tyson and the legal team or getting this whole gray and tricky area resolved. But non-entity, quite simply put, means non-payment. And people may not believe this, but turning up for a match or being part of the shows, not even fighting, earns him several $millions. So this issue with this working visa in the States is costing him a large amount of cash. WWE works with foreign athletes all the time in aiding their visa processing for appearances. The legal team are on the sideline offering support in this matter, but ultimately getting approval is on Tyson's head and how US immigration assesses his case. On the Wrestling with Freddie podcast, Jeff Dye, who was in a relationship with Becky Lynch prior to her seeing Seth Rollins, explained why Lynch has issues with Charlotte Flair. I hope I'm not sharing too much here, but they would take it really personal. Like when her and Charlotte were feuding, I would listen to her be like, I can't believe Charlotte's actually getting mad at me. I was like, you guys do know this is a storyline, right? You guys don't have to actually be upset with each other for this to work. I think it's like comedy or show business, or maybe even if you work at a warehouse, or you work at Target, or you work at Best Buy, you get competitive. You want the promotion, or you want the raise, or you want some position, and so that's just part of it for them. Charlotte had a difficult time that Becky was starting to become the face of the female wrestling thing. I guess it wasn't surprising. It didn't change my perspective, but it was interesting to see how much they genuinely, when you're struggling on the roster, it affects their personal life. Promoting her upcoming book, WWE Hall of Famer Madusa touched on the dark side of the wrestling business as she said, well, you know, not that some of these people don't need to be brought to the forefront because this business was very Harvey Weinstein-ish, let's put it that way. And I have watched these people get what they deserved in other ways. So I think the people that want to throw people under the bus in a book for 5 seconds of pleasure, 30 years later, is very harmful when they have kids and families who are innocent to the situation. Now, I say Harvey Weinstein, you know, that bastard probably got what he had coming, right? And there was a lot of guys like that in this business, trust me, guys that you know, and it's just a matter of time, you know what I mean? I will take probably a lot of it to my grave because it's just no one's business at this point. I explain a lot in my book in somehow, some form. You guys, a lot of people, they'll understand. I guess they found with times communications changed and words changed, and I think they found more eloquent ways to communicate it so it wasn't so obvious. So back in the day, it used to be all casting couch BS, right? You know, the old words and whatnot. I think people are very careful nowadays. It's always going to happen. It's just always going to happen. It's always going to be there somewhere, somehow. No matter how many AIs you have sitting around or phones or whatnot, it's just crap's going to happen. Did I see a big change? Of course. I saw an evolution of or progressing to get better. Absolutely. And it's a lot better now than it was, I will say. But when you have guys in a woman's food and watching her eat it, it is disgusting. Let me tell you, this is what I'm saying. These men who did stuff like this are people's idols today. It's kind of like when I say Harvey Weinstein-ish, people would be shocked because of everything that Harvey did for everybody and all the stars he hung around with and all the big names. It'd be shocking like that in wrestling. It would really disappoint a lot of you. The other day, the Pro Wrestling World would pay tribute to the late Brodie Lee as they wrote, "Today marks 2 years since the passing of John Hubert, Mr. Brodie Lee. Please join us in celebrating Big Rig by sharing your favorite memories. This gift came across my timeline and I figured I'd share a sweet memory." He would do this in just about every match. Brodie asked him to blow him a kiss on TV. The following week, he started doing it. He said one hand was for Brodie and later Nolan, and one was for me. Forever. For Brodie, this one was extra special as my brother got to join me on the workout. Luke Harper was one of his favorite wrestlers. Yeah. Thank you. On the bowling alley, Kenny Bolin and his son Chris discussed the speaking out movement allegations against Jim Cornette and his wife Stacy, where they were said to be grooming young talent in WWE's developmental territory, Ohio Valley Wrestling. Yes, I was aware, and people ask me why I didn't say anything. Well, number one, it wasn't my place to say anything. Number two, anyone who would say something, I would think anyone getting lured into this would be the one to say something. Kenny Bolin would also note that Cornette's wife had already been with the Big Show before she met Jimmy. He would go on to say that Stacy Cornette had seen Big Show naked smoking a cigarette, and that's not a pretty sight. All I know is that any girl he's been with, that's not my territory. In an advertised WWE program for a live event, it seems Sasha Banks was accidentally on it, as it was revealed by a fan in the Atlanta area. They just advertised a WWE program you can buy at the WWE shop stand. The program has Sasha Banks in the top left corner. Before everybody freaks out because I see the QTs, it was an old photo in the left-hand corner, so it was most likely an old program, or they just forgot to remove her. Banks, who is expected to make an appearance for New Japan next month, would also take to Twitter yesterday to write, "One of my biggest dreams came true today." And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.